Welcome all to our webinar today. Today we'll be focusing on the Doctoral Networks 2024 call in Marie Skłodowska-Curie Actions in Horizon Europe. My name is Anne Meiber, and with me I have my colleague Lea Motzfeldt, and we are the two national contact points for the MSCA, as we also call the Marie Skłodowska-Curie program here in Denmark. We're based at the Danish Agency for Higher Education and Science, and here, along with our about 20 colleagues, we work with the different programs in Horizon Europe. First, just a few practical aspects about the webinar. So as you probably heard, the webinar is being recorded. After the webinar, we will send you a link to the recording so you can rewatch or share with others. And we'll also send you all the presentations that you will see in the webinar. We have plenty of time for questions throughout the webinar, so please post your questions in the Q&A function. We'll answer some in writing during the webinar, but we'll also take some questions and have them answered live. If you have any other comments, please write them in the chat. I think that was it for sort of all the practical details. And then just to move on to have a look at the agenda for the webinar. So first, we'll say just a little bit about our role as national contact points and how we can help you with sort of your ventures in the MSCA program. And then, of course, we'll dive into the Doctoral Networks call here in 2024. And we're very happy that we have project officer Sophia Arduin Monroy from the European Research Executive Agency in the MSCA unit will join us and share all the details and eligibility criteria, etc., about the call. Then we have some time for your questions. And then after that, we're also very happy to introduce Tilman Weber, who's a professor and head of the Natural Products Genome Mining Group at the Technical University of Denmark. And he is the coordinator of a doctoral network, and he'll share his experiences with both applying for a project and also implementing the project, which is running now. And then again, time for your questions. First, though, we'd like to involve you a little bit and sort of know who you are on the other side of the screen. So we hope you will join us in Slido by going to slido.com, or you can just sort of scan the QR code on your screen. And we'd like to know about your experience with MSCA Doctoral Networks. So if you join in, and then you can choose one or more of the options here. So you can say that you have experience with the application stage, that you have experience with managing a project, or that you have experience with other MSCA types of projects, or that you have no experience with the MSCA program in general. And I see already lots of answers coming in. So quite a lot of you at least have experience with the application stage, writing the application for a doctoral network, or maybe the innovative training networks, as sort of the networks were called in the previous program in Horizon 2020. There's also some experience with other MSCA actions and schemes, and some experience with managing these networks as well. And then there's also about a group of you that have that don't have experience with the MSCA program just yet. I'll just give it a few more seconds to see if a couple more wants to share sort of their experience. I think we'll move on to, because we have just one more question for you, which has to deal with what you're hoping to achieve by attending the webinar today. So what do you want to learn more about? if you would share just 1 or 2 words about sort of what you hope will be your main takeaway when you're done with the webinar today. So someone is hoping for sort of general information about the call, news, sort of adjustments, maybe from last year's call to this year's call. Yeah, novelties again in the 2024 call. Tips and tricks for the application, how to boost the application. So how to make a strong case. So definitely good to have information about how to write a strong application and present your case well. And general information and tips. So I see a lot of sort of comments around adjustments to the call since last year, and news, novelties, and tips, in general, tips for how to write a strong application, how to be successful in the call. And there's also one about reporting, and I don't think that we'll quite cover that in this webinar, but if there are questions about reporting, it's definitely something you can address to us later on as well. All right, I think we will move on from here, and I know Sophia's also listening from Rea, and she then also knows what to focus on in her presentation. So very good, and thank you for joining in Slido. And then we just have one slide here, sort of to say a little bit about our role as the national contact points. And as I said, we're based here at the Danish Agency for Higher Education and Science, where we are appointed as these national contact points for the different programs in Horizon Europe. And as such, it's our role to offer counseling on the opportunities, the rules, and the procedures in Horizon Europe, and provide guidance on how to find the most appropriate opportunities in the program, how to go about writing a strong application, and also to address sort of issues that may arise in ongoing projects during the implementation. So we're available for that. It's always possible to contact us via email or via phone and sort of get our advice and our counseling on different aspects. And then we do webinars like the one here today on different aspects in Horizon Europe. We also do workshops, trainings, information meetings, and sort of other types of events. Then we produce publications and analysis that dive into areas of Horizon Europe. And we coordinate a national network of EU advisors who offer sort of their counseling free of charge. So that's a good place to start here in Denmark if you're sort of looking to see what kind of European funding is available for your type of project. Then the EUDK Support Network and their site, which there's a link here to, is a very good place to start. And then we've added a link to our website where you can find a lot more information about also the MSCA program, but also the rest of Horizon Europe. And we also have a link to all the advisors here at the agency. And then with that, I'll pass the floor on to Sophia Adwin-Monroy, who's a project officer in the European Research Executive Agency in the MSCA unit. And we're very happy, Sophia, that you were able to
Thank you very much.
and share some of the details. And you can go ahead and share your slides.
I will share my presentation. So I hope you will be able to see my presentation. So again, good morning, everyone, and thanks a lot for everyone organized this very useful meeting today. My name is Sophia Adwin-Monroy. I'm project officer in the Marie Skłodowska-Curie Actions Doctoral Networks unit here at the European Research Executive Agency. The purpose of today, my presentation today, will give to provide you an overview of the Doctoral Networks call for 2024, which, as you know, opened just yesterday. So I think it's a very important day. So as is in my place, the content of my presentation will start with an overview of the Marie Skłodowska-Curie Action Work Program. Then we'll focus a bit more on the doctoral networks. We touch also the eligibility rules, the funding mechanism, and of course also the evaluation criteria needed. So, first I'm going to present you the MCSA action in general. As you know, at the core of the action is really the researchers' training skills and capital development. This is a bottom-up R&I program, so it means that you can come up with any proposals in any field of research that you want. But of course, it is essential to ensure the mobility among countries, sector, while at the same time creating a really attractive employment condition for the different researchers. So within the big picture of Horizon Europe, you will see that Marie Skłodowska-Curie Action falls under Pillar 1, Excellent Science, together with the European Research Council and the research infrastructures. With a total budget of 6.6 billion of euros for the total duration of the framework program. So today, of course, here are there are 5 different actions under Marie Curie. Today we will focus on doctoral networks. Here you will find also the budget allocated for this year call, which is 8.6 million of euros. And also, you will see the deadline to apply for the current call, which is the 27th of November, 2024. I will keep saying so during my presentation today. Please try to prepare your proposal in advance and not to submit the very last minute. That it may be, you may always have some issues. So prepare really your proposals well in advance. So now let's focus really on doctoral network. The doctoral networks, as you know, is a consortium of entities that is going to propose an overall coherent research project and a number of interlinked individual PhD research projects for doctoral candidates. The network, the main purpose of the network is really to keep researchers with the right combination of research-related and transferable skills and provide them with an enhanced career perspective in both the academic and non-academic sectors. So you will see also the intersectoral element is extremely important under Marie Curie, as well as the international and interdisciplinary mobility. So the idea behind this is to train doctoral candidates to increase their career prospect and opportunity, as well as their employability. But what is the expected impacts for the participating organization? Well, first of all, you will have the opportunity to recruit excellent doctoral candidates anywhere in the world. You will have also the possibility to build your network, so enhance the network by enhancing also the transfer of knowledge between the different sectors and disciplines, and of course increase your research capacity. And of course, what is extremely important is to establish sustainable collaboration between the academic and non-academic sector, and to foster, last but not least, the culture of open science, which, as you know, it's really at the core of Marie Skłodowska-Curie and Doctoral Network in particular. Under doctoral networks, there are 3 different implementation modes. This, as you know, is a multi-beneficiaries actions. So the first one is the doctoral networks, what is so-called standard EN, with the purpose to train both in the academia and or in the industry sector. So your consortium may have representative from the 2 sectors. Then we have industrial doctorate. Of course, here we have a strong focus. It's put on the participant coming from the non-academic sectors, so that the fellow should spend at least 50% of their time in industry. And of course, if you decide to set up, to set up an industrial doctoral network, you will need also joint supervision from both the academic and non-academic sectors. And then we'll have the joint doctorate, so it's mainly a joint collaboration leading to a joint multiple degrees. Again, you will need to have a joint selection and supervision governance. And what is extremely important is if you decide to prepare proposals under JD, then you would need to have a pre-agreement for joint degrees already at the proposal stage. So it means that you have to clarify the agreement between the university issuing the diploma. It is important to highlight that the three implementation modes, so DN, ID, and JD, compete within the same funnel. So there is no different budget light for doctoral networks or joint doctorate. So let's now focus a bit on the novelties under this call. So the first one is that you will see we have an increased unit cost. It means that the contribution for the recruited researchers have been increased. So we have a living allowance now becomes 4,010 euros, which of course is a gross amount that should be multiplied by the country correction coefficients. If you want to have a look at the different country correction coefficients, you have to have a look at the work program at the annex. And then, of course, we have also the mobility allowance that now becomes 710 euro per eligible person month. So this is particularly important, compared to the end 2023. We have also some restriction when it comes to the resubmission. This is also specified in the MSCA work program 2023-2025. So any proposals involving 70% or more of the same recruiting organization as in other proposals submitted under Doctoral Network will be assessed on whether or not is a resubmission and that are received a score less than 80%. And this will be done irrespective of the applicant's self-declaration. So please bear in mind that if you fall under this category, then your proposal will be subject to an extra assessment to make sure that this is not a resubmission if has received a score of less than 80%. Then we have also a change more specific to joint doctorate. It's related to eligibility condition. As you know, joint doctorate should lead to the delivery of joint, double, or multiple doctoral degrees recognized in at least one EU member states or EU associated countries, and this opposed to a minimum of 2 under the end 2023. So the idea is really to simplify the rules. Joint doctorate are quite complex to implement. So this would facilitate the beneficiaries and the recruiting institution and also the doctoral candidates. So on the specificity, let's have a look at the three implementation mode. DN, JD, and ID. You will see that when it comes to the amount of person months allocated to the three implementation mode is the same. So it's 540 person months. When it comes to the duration, we'll see that under the N, we have a maximum duration of 48 months, but it means that you may offer a fellowship that minimum 3 months up to 36 months. So basically, it's 3 years. You will have the possibility to send the fellows on secondment. Secondment is worldwide and should be limited to up to 1/3 of the total recruitment period. For JD, we have a project duration that is slightly longer than DN and ID, and is maximum 60 months. The fellowship is minimum 3 months and a maximum 48 months. So we'll have the possibility to finance the 4th year because in some member states or associated countries, the duration of PhD is 4 years. So this would also facilitate the applicants. As you will see, there is no limitation for secondments. The enrollment in a joint, double, multiple PhD recognized at least by one member state is, of course, it's mandatory. As a JD, you have to set up a joint admission, selection, training, and supervision and governance arrangement. And as I said before, in mandatory letters of pre-agreements are essential, are mandatory, and they need to be prepared already at the proposal stage. But no worry, because you have then we will show you where to find all these documents, because you have template also to prepare your proposals in the best possible way. For industrial doctorates, again, we have the duration is, again, the fellowship should be between 3 and 36 months. There is no limitation to secondments. And when it comes to the industrial sector, you know that fellows should spend at least 50% of their time in the non-academic sectors. What is important is that the non-academic sector can participate either as a beneficiaries or associated partner, and can be located in the same member states. And of course, again, as I said before, ID should set up a joint supervision arrangement from the very beginning. So now here it's just to it's quite easy what we mean for academic and non-academic sector. Of course, academic sector. I mean, it's easy. It's public or private education establishments, all the public or private no-profit research organization, and the international European research organization. While the non-academic sector is considered by exclusion from the academic sectors, and of course all the private for-profit businesses and small medium enterprises. Now, with regard to the eligibility condition, as you know, if you decide to set up to participate and to prepare your proposals under the N, you will need to comply with this condition. So, as you know, you need to have at least 3 independent legal entities that each established in a different EU member states or Horizon Europe associated countries. You will need to have at least 1 beneficiaries from a new member states. If you participate as a beneficiary, of course, you need to recruit at least 1 doctoral candidate. And of course, if you recruit your fellows, it is compulsory that you host your fellow at your premises and you supervise the recruited researchers, or you use associated partners linked to them to do so. Bear in mind that the 40%, you have to comply with the 40% in rule, meaning that no more than 40% of the total maximum grant amount can be allocated to beneficiaries in the same countries or to a single international organization. Have a look at the specific eligible conditions and for industrial doctorate and joint doctorate, and of course, bear in mind the rules I just mentioned you before concerning the resubmission restriction. All the proposals that score below 80% in the DN call 2023. So again, it is for a JD specific condition. Again, you would need to have a minimum 3 participants awarding the PhD. So the eligibility condition, the one I just told you about, of course, are applicable to the 3 implementation modes. These are more specifically for JD. So for JD, you have to comply also, you have to have minimum 3 participants awarding PhD, one of which should be from a member states or EU associated countries. Again, you have this enrollment in the joint double multiple PhD. You need to have a joint admission, letter of pre-agreement, and you have this fellowship that can last up to 48 months. Here it's an example of how the joint doctorate degrees works. So if you go for a joint degree, then it means that you have a single diploma issued by at least 2 academic institutions located in 2 different countries and recognized officially. When it comes to double or multiple degree, it means that you have 2 or more separate national diplomas issued by 2 or more higher education institutions located in different countries and recognized officially. And again, of course, all of these should be already clarified at the proposal stage. So the purpose of the letter of pre-agreement is really to clarify how what you intend to do when applying for a joint doctorate. So now for the ID specific condition, as I said, I mean, I will not repeat myself. You will see what is essential here. It's really the importance to comply with the 50% rule and to have exactly the fact that there is full flexibility when it comes to the non-academic sector that can participate either as a beneficiary or associated countries. They can be in the same member states. There is no secondment limitation, and again, you have these rules of the joint supervision arrangement between the 2 institutions. For the participant types, you will see that when concerning the different role, so we have the academic and non-academic. Of course, both can be beneficiaries, both can be also associated partners. Of course, only beneficiaries are entitled to sign the grant agreement because are the one receiving the grants, not the associated partner. The recruitment of researchers is done only by the beneficiaries and not by the associated partner. The training and hosting of seconded researcher or the enrollment into a PhD can be done both by beneficiaries and associated partners. Also, the participation in the supervisory board is, also associated partner entitled to participate. This is something that is decided at consortium. When you prepare your consortium agreement, in principle, you should have this put in place. What is important also in the supervisory board, here is not mentioned, but also to have a representative from the doctoral candidates. And claim cost, it goes without saying that only beneficiary can claim cost because are the one signing the grant. Now, I mentioned before the fact that who can participate, in fact, to the end. So who can apply? They can apply any legal entity from anywhere in the world, but of course, not all applicants are automatically eligible for funding. The consortia should be of university, research institution, business, SMEs. But if you and when it comes to the associated partner, again, there is no minimum number. You may have as many as associated partners you deem necessaries. But let's go a bit into details when it comes to the eligible countries. Here you have a bit of an overview. So, of course, are eligible to participate in the Marie Skłodowska-Curie Action, the member states, including the outermost regions and the overseas countries. There are also third countries, so countries that are associated to Horizon Europe, and also low and middle income countries. What is extremely important is to have a look at the Horizon Europe program guide, where you have the list of all countries which are eligible for funding. As you know, probably you know that as of 2020, the end of 2024, UK is fully associated to Horizon Europe, so it will participate and will get funding. And of course, in some cases, even countries that are not in principle considered eligible for funding can be exceptionally they can exceptionally participate in the action if their participation is considered essential. Of course, who is assessing these? The expert will be responsible also to assess your proposals. There are also specific cases, as I said, affiliated entities established in countries eligible for funding, EU bodies, or international organizations. Here, I will just for you to have a look, but of course, I will share also my presentation so you can have a look clearly. As you can see, the eligible countries, we have the 27 member states. We have a list of associated countries. Please bear in mind the Swiss is not an associated country any longer. Of course, they can participate, they can recruit fellows, but with their own fund. So, meaning that they cannot receive money, they cannot claim cost under the action. And then, of course, there are countries for which their participation and their association is still ongoing, for instance, as Morocco. That's why please bear in mind to have a look at the Horizon Europe program guide when you prepare your proposal. Now, with regard to the eligible researchers, who can participate in terms of researchers? So the researchers must be doctoral candidates, so should not be in possession of a doctoral degree at the time of the recruitment. When you decide to carry out the recruitment, you have to, first of all, comply with the open and merit-based and transparent recruitment process. So bear this in mind. It's important there is no conflict of interest between the institution recruiting the fellows and the fellows. All fellows should be enrolled in a doctoral program in at least one EU member states or EU associated countries. They can come from anywhere in the world, and they need to comply with the mobility rules. So, meaning that they should not have resided or carry out the main activity for 1 year, for more than for 1 year, in the 36 months prior to the first recruitment date in the country of the recruiting beneficiary. Please bear, and this is particularly important when you start also in the recruitment process. It's important also that who is applying for the call is aware of all these rules related to Marie Curie for the end. Now, with regard to the funding mechanism, as you know, under Horizon Europe Doctoral Network, more specifically, there is a simplified approach. We do have unit cost, which means that 1 person month for each eligible researchers. You have 100% reimbursement for eligible beneficiaries, and of course, you have different cost categories. We have the researcher's costs, which are the cost, the salary, and the mobility allowance, plus some extra allowance. Now we'll go a bit through all of them. And then we'll have the institutional costs that are research, training, and networking costs, and management costs that are more related to the implementation of the action. Here you will have a distribution, the breakdown of the different allowance. You will see the living and the mobility allowance. Again, the living allowance is gross, so then it should be, but it should be also in the vacancy notice, you have to put the gross salaries, but again, this should be multiplied by the country correction coefficient. We have the mobility allowance. We have also the family allowance, if applicable. Of course, fellows are entitled to request the mobility allowance, the family allowance during the overall duration of the action. So if their family status change, they can claim this. Then we have this long-term leave allowance and special leave allowance. If you're already familiar with the N, these are new novelties. These two, the first one is, they should really consider the first one as a top-up for leaves longer than 31st consecutive days, but this should be considered really as a top-up. And then we have special needs allowance, meaning that it's mainly for fellows with disabilities that needs, for instance, to buy special equipment to perform the action. Then we have the institutional contribution per person. There are the research, training, and networking contribution, and the management and indirect contribution. The first cost, so the training and networking contribution, these are considered the institutional cost. They should be really used by the consortium to implement the action, because the ratio behind is that fellows should not bear any cost related to implementation of their project. So, for instance, this category of cost should be used to send the fellows on secondment, to buy, for instance, special equipment, really for pays for tuition fees, for visa-related costs. So this is, fellows should also be aware when you hire them of this category of costs. And then the management and indirect contribution, it's easy, it should be used mainly for the implementation of the action. The way you decide to spend this money should be, in principle, the institutional unit cost, should be, in principle, established, let's say, in the consortium agreement. How the evaluation of process works. So how your proposal will be evaluated. First of all, when you prepare your proposals, you know the deadline, the 27th of November, you submit your proposals, and the first, we have the admissibility eligibility check. So what we do is to check whether or not your proposal comply with the eligibility rules. So if the proposal is eligible, then with the support of senior experts, the proposal will be allocated to evaluators. So one thing you need to know is that this is a peer review process. So we basically recruit experts from outside, and there are 2 stages in this evaluation process. So the proposal is evaluated by 3 independent experts that they don't know each other, they don't talk to each other. These experts, they will assess your proposals and write an individual evaluation report. Then, when they've done that, they group in a consensus group, and they will have to discuss and agree and come up with a consensus set of comments, assessment, statement about your proposals, and a consensus score. And this is basically what it's produced at the end is basically the consensus report, and this is the outcome you receive at the end of the evaluation process. After this consensus group, there are always 3 experts plus 1 4th expert, which is the expert which is not assessing the proposals but is performing a quality check. So it makes sure there is consistency between comments and scores. Then there is this panel review. Basically, is the panel of experts that they meet together and they reach an agreement on the scores. So the idea behind this panel review meeting is that there is consistency across the evaluation. So there is fair treatment of all the proposals. And after that, there is they rank the proposals with the same score. At the end of the panel review, there is the finalization. So the commission agency reviews the result of the expert evaluation and put together the final ranking list. So how your proposals is evaluated? You will see that there are specific award criteria, excellence, impact, and implementation. And within these criteria, there are sub-criteria. I will not go through all of them, as you will see that in the slide, and you will also find them in the funding and tender portal. So in the proposal template, you will see that the template follows the order of the criteria and the different sub-criteria. So it should be noted that you will be assessed on each sub-criteria, and you will get the score per criterion. So please do it carefully. It is important to highlight that there is also a widening page criterion. So you will see that excellence count 50%. Then we have impact is 30%, and the quality and efficiency of implementation is 20%. And the priority means if there are 2 proposals with the same scores, for example, what is so-called the ex-aequo proposals, but one has a higher score under excellence, this will be prioritized under the ranking list. So how to apply, perhaps also this, I will try to reply also to some of the questions that pop up in the slide before. If you go to the funding and tender portal, you will be redirected in the call page when you will find all the useful documents that you need in order to prepare your proposals, including the work program, the Horizon Europe program guide, which is, as I said, particularly important in order to check those countries which are considered eligible for funding. You will find also the guide for applicant and the proposal template with the explanation with what is expected for you for each paragraph. So please make sure to use the last template. Your proposals is divided in two parts. There is part A and part B. The part B is the narrative part. The part B is divided in two, part B1 and part B2. Please note that for part B1, you have to respect the page limit, because if you don't, any extra page will be automatically blank out, so the expert will not be able to assess it. In part 2, you have no page limit, and in principle, you have to provide information concerning, for example, the participant, and also the letter of pre-agreement. To prepare your proposals, here are some tips. First of all, please make sure to read the work program and the guide for applicants. These are very clear and understandable. Use the proposal template, the one of the year of the call, because there may be some changes between a call and the other. So please don't use the old template, which is something that we usually notice, and because it may penalize also your proposals. Read carefully the evaluation form. Do not underestimate any part of your proposals, as you know, this is a very competitive call. Last but not least, write each section clearly and in coherence with all the proposals. As advice, is important to perform a peer review with all the consortium members, so make sure that all the consortium members participate also in the drafting of the proposals. If they have doubt, consult the national contact points, because they are very knowledgeable and experienced, so they can really assist and help you in this exercise. Make sure to complete part A, which is the one you complete directly in the system, carefully. As often we see there are common mistakes, in particular with regard to the budget section. There might be some mistake. And last but not least, prepare your proposal early. Don't do it at the very last minute. So here, just for you to know, there is a proposal in order to prepare in the best possible way for the DN 2024. There is the info day. The info day will take place on the 7th of June, so next week. You will have the possibility to watch it online via the RTD platform. Of course, all these links are already available online, but it will be shared with you. You have the possibility either to attend live or to follow the registration, because it will be recorded. I really suggest you to read carefully all the call-related documents that are available as of yesterday, 29th of May. But what is extremely useful here is that you will have the possibility to place your question well in advance via Slido. There is a specific code, that's the one you see in my presentation, so #DN2024. You will have the possibility to insert the code and pose your question, which will be answered live. And even though, as I said, all this material will be then grouped in a library, let's say, and will be available online right after the presentation. For more details on the program, you can consult the MSCA 2024 call info event page, but really suggest you all to participate. And here also are some available resources, the one I just mentioned today. So of course, the work program, the program guide, some link concerning to the MSCA website in general, to the research executive agency. So if you feel like checking one of these, all these, please have a look at all this link. And last but not least, you are always in the European Commission, the Research Executive Agency. We always try to find extra experts that you will be. If you decide, so you have the possibility as an applicant. Also, you have the experience to participate also as an expert. We keep checking, looking for new experts. So please, if you are interested in participating, register as an expert via the funding and the portal. You can be either expert on evaluating, for example, the proposals, or monitoring of the action. So you will provide an expertise of a specific project, but please do not hesitate if you feel like interested in doing so. This brings at the end of my presentation, so thanks a lot. And if you have any question, yeah, I will just stop sharing my screen. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Sophia, for this very comprehensive presentation. So just to go back to our presentation here. And before, there we go. So before we open the floor for questions, we would like to also present just the 2 slides here on statistics for the Doctoral Networks calls since the beginning of this framework program, so 2021, and until the most recent results in 2023. So in the first line here, applications, you can see numbers of all evaluated applications for the calls. In the dark blue color is all countries, and the light blue color is numbers from Denmark only. So in the last call in 2023, there was a total of 1,061 applications for the call, and 54 of these were submitted by a Danish coordinator. The next line shows all the funded projects. So in the last call, a total of 128 applications were funded, and 7 of them are coordinated by a Danish institution. The last line shows the success rates. As you can see, Denmark was off to a very good start in the Horizon Europe program in 2021, with a record high success rate of 27.5%, which is quite above the average success rate of 13.4% in 21. In the last 2 years, the Danish success rate is still quite good. It's more or less in line with the average success rates for the calls. We also wanted to show you just another table to give you a more in-depth view of Danish participations in the doctoral networks. So in the previous slide, the numbers only referred to applications by coordinators. And in this table, you can see participations, meaning both coordinators, partners, and associated partners. So that's why these numbers are much higher. And as you can see, the blue bar shows the number of Danish participations in applications. So this number has increased quite a lot since 2021, with 610 participations in 2023. And so the next bar, the dark green one, shows Danish participations in funded projects, which of course we also happy to see has increased each year. So in 2023 there was 97 Danish participations in funded projects. And the last bar, you can also see these numbers in the last slide, as they show the number of funded projects with a Danish coordinator. So a total of 7 Danish coordinated projects in 2023. And now we didn't include success rates of participations in this slide, but in fact, the Danish success rates of participations in funded projects has been above the average success rates of participations each year so far. And now let's move on to some of your questions for Sophia or for us. Let's hear, Anne, if there's
we have some questions indeed, yes. So Sophia, some questions for you.
Yeah.
We also see them, but we'll just read them out loud, just so we're sure everyone knows. So just the first question is, in standard doctoral networks, if some students are enrolled in 3-year PhD program and some in 4-year, could fellowships last 4 years for the students who are in the 4-year PhD programs, or what to do?
So, as I said, I mean, we are aware of this. So there are some member states where the PhD duration is 4 years, other when it's 3 years. But the problem is that in standard yen and in ID, as I said, is not possible to finance, let's say, the 4th year. So what we request usually, what we suggest is that you finance with your funding the 4th year of the fellows. This is different, of course, for joint doctorate when there is the possibility to have a fellowship of 48 months. So it means that you can finance, so the grant cover also the 4th year of the fellowship. So you would need that's the issue. You would need to find extra funding to finance the 4th year of the fellows for the end ID.
Good.
So yeah.
Very clear, thank you. So you already mentioned it sort of briefly, but could you maybe elaborate on how the experts are chosen, if they're sort of colleagues from the same scientific field as the proposal?
No, and I mean, the thing is that, as you said, I mean, we select, how does it work? As you know, when you prepare your proposals, you have to submit your proposal in one of the 8 main evaluation panels. So it's true, you can prepare your proposals in any field of research you like, but there's these 8 panels. We ask you to submit your proposals. And of course, for each panel, there are also some keywords, let's say, and via these keywords, we select via the funding and tender portal some experts. In doing this selection, we are supported by what is called also senior experts. So our experts are already done some evaluation in the past, so they are knowledgeable of the proposals. So what they do is just to allocate the proposals with experts, which are selected directly from the funding and the portal via specific keywords that should match your proposals. So in this way, of course, what we do in parallel, we carry out a conflict of interest. So we have to make sure there is no conflict of interest between the expert assessing the proposals and the beneficiaries or the organization that are participant in that project. So that's why exactly, I mean, if you're really interested in participating as an evaluator, you have to register via the funding and the portal. You have to insert some, let's say, keywords. And via these, of course, we have a look at the possible experts that will be willing to and they're knowledgeable to assess the proposal.
Thanks for that. There's also a question regarding the composition of the consortium. The question is whether it's possible or recommended to apply with a consortium consisting only of academic partners.
Again, I mean, it is possible for, let's say, DN and JD. For industrial doctorate, of course, not. So it means that, I mean, it depends. I mean, either you decide to have industrial doctorate when you know the industrial aspect it's mandatory. Participant, I mean, if they are beneficiaries, I mean, they can be all, for instance, institutions, so academic beneficiary, but you need to have also as associated partners some non-academic. Otherwise, it wouldn't be. I mean, it wouldn't be convenient to apply as a standard as industrial doctorate. I mean, this should comply with the rules. For the DN and JD, for the other, of course, you can have only academic beneficiary. But what is important under Marie Curie and Doctoral Network is also to have this interdisciplinary aspect that should be focused. So having, I mean, this also will help researcher to find, I mean, to be a bit more in the search for an employment. I mean, we cannot, it is important also to keep strong the industrial element in the end. So this interdisciplinary aspect is fundamental. So I think that not having the industrial either beneficiary or associated partner in your consortium in somehow could penalize your proposals. Because this also is assessed. It's one of the sub-criteria you will see in the proposals. Also, the non-academic element is taken into account. So please, I mean, that's why it's important that before you apply, you read carefully, I mean, the proposal, the call, and make sure to reply in a consistent and clear way to each of the sub-criteria. So, yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Just to make clear that when you're saying interdisciplinary, it's also intersectoral. Yes, so
interdisciplinary, exactly. I mean also intersectoral. So interdisciplinary, intersectoral, exactly. This is the aspect that it should always be. It's that at the core of the action.
Yes.
So please consider this. But of course, if you want only academic beneficiaries and then some industrial, let's say, participating organization, I mean, to participate as associated partner, of course, this is possible. So you can do that.
Then one a little bit more specific question: can an associated partner be acting as a subcontractor for the communication, dissemination, and exploitation, being paid over the management and indirect costs sort of contributions? And second question to that: can they act as a work package leader?
So ideally, I mean, this is something then let's try to look at during the implementation of the action. Yes, I mean, what they can do, they can, I mean, the point is when it comes to they can act, of course, their role should be clarified already in the proposals. They can also, associated partner can be also not for the management of there are also some work package related to the management administration. This can be only done by the coordinators and the beneficiaries. They can, in some cases, we allow associated partner to lead some work package, but ideally, since they have no access also to the funding and to the portal, please bearing in mind that it would be better if you have as a work package leader beneficiaries. But in some cases, this should be, I mean, assessed on a case-by-case scenario. We may allow, I mean, also associated partner to be work package leader, but this is quite rare, and as I said, it should be assessed on a case-by-case. So when you prepare your proposal. But yes, they can also participate. And of course, concerning the management of the indirect costs, I mean, how they are paid, as you said, I mean, this should be decided at consortium level. So when you prepare the consortium agreement, of course, you may decide also to distribute certain amount of the money, the management money, to the associated partner. But this should be decided after the GAP is signed, of course, and when you prepare your consortium agreement. It's an internal decision.
Then the next question is about sort of the scope of the call. Is the call mainly market-oriented, so entrepreneurial, or is it also geared towards developing skill sets for the public sector? So it's a question from Nana, if you see it in your Q&A.
Is the call mainly market-oriented? No, you mean, I mean, is the call mainly market-oriented? I mean, no, I mean, the idea is really to foster the research, I mean, in Europe, I mean, to give the possibility to fellows to develop their employability, but at the same time to develop research in a very specific field. So I would say that, of course, it is important also that the proposals try. I mean, what we take into account also is there is some element related to the let's say to the public sector in terms of the policy aspect. For instance, if, for example, there is a proposal that is focusing on cancer, on the Green Deal, so also on the priorities. For instance, of the European Commission in general. So it's really important that I mean, also these aspects are taken into account. So I would say also, I mean, it's a bit of both.
And then one question, is it still key to explain why it is important to educate a cohort of PhD students in this particular interdisciplinary research area with these scientific method and skills?
These are a bit of philosophical question now. But I would say definitely yes. I mean, because if you look also at I mean, you have to think try to think that among the Marie Skłodowska-Curie fellows or former fellows, there are also 15 Nobel Prize winners. So I must say that it is important to keep funding this kind of action, and of course, I mean, it contributes to the excellent research, to busting jobs, to growth in general in Europe. So definitely, we should continue in financing this action with it, which of course it's essential. So yeah.
Let's see, and then there's a question about the major updates, and I think you covered those, Sofia, in your.
Yeah, these have been covered. I mean, I think one of the first one is related to the cost. The second one exactly, it's mainly so we have an increase of the researcher cost and the mobility allowance. As I say, there is this change concerning the resubmission. So if you applied last year and your proposal received a score less than 80%, you will be subject to, let's say, a resubmission committee. So it will be, let's say, assessed despite the applicant's self-declaration. And then there is from JD, the JD, if you apply for a joint doctorate, if it's a joint multiple doctorate, it should be recognized in at least one member state as opposite to two under the end 2023.
Yes, very good. But they're also part of the slides that we'll send out. And then maybe we'll take one last question now, and then we have more time for questions later. So you pose again if you have questions.
So another question here. I think I hear you say that the money for research training also could be used for the tuition fee of the PhD fellow. Is that correct?
Yeah, this is correct. Exactly. I mean, part of the institutional cost should be used to cover the tuition fees. So that's something very important. So please make sure that fellows don't bear any cost, as I said, related to the implementation of the action. This should be covered by institutional cost.
Perfect. Thank you, Sophia. And then with that, we'll just have one more sort of brief Slido question to sort of sum up Sophia's presentation. If you would join us back in Slido and just answer the question, what was or where was the most useful information for you in all the details that we just heard about the 2024 Doctoral Networks call. Here you can answer whether it was under the eligibility rules, the types of networks, the budget, the structure of the application, or the evaluation, or statistics as well. Yeah, so please give us your answers in Slido. So a lot of people found it useful to hear about the evaluation process and the criteria, and maybe about the experts as well, and also about the eligibility rules. We also have many that found useful information about the budget and the statistics as well. And a few also in the types of networks, but that may already have been sort of known about the three different networks.
Mm-hmm. We could also see a question about the statistics, and in general, we are happy to provide any information that we can. So we'll get back to you in writing, and then you're always welcome to get to write us an email, and we can see what we can provide.
But definitely the top one is the eligibility rules. Always good to be on point with those. So that's good. You covered them well, Sophia. And I think we'll move on to our next presentation. So we are very happy to have Tilman Weber join us. And Tilman, I hope you are here. I see you. Yes. So Tilman Weber is professor and head of the Natural Products Genome Mining Group, as was said before, at the Technical University of Denmark. And we're very happy that you wanted to and were able to join us today to share your experiences with coordinating a doctoral network and applying for it, and then also being right in the middle of implementing it. And I'll pass the floor to you, Tilman.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me? Yes,
yes.
I think so.
Your slides.
Thanks a lot for the invitation to present. For me, this is a premiere. I'm very used to talk about our science, but not so much about implementing how we do it. Just who am I? I'm Tilman Weber. I'm a professor at DTU, and my work area is very closely related to the topic of this doctoral network that we run, which is in the end identifying new microbial natural products by a very integrative approach, combining chemistry, bioinformatics, and also metabolic engineering. And as I'm a scientist, I have to tell you a little bit about our science. What is basically the key concept behind the doctoral network? These are these natural products. These are very famous chemicals that are produced by a lot of microorganisms, bacteria, fungi, or plants, and all of us come into contact with these chemicals every day. They are some of the most unique and important resources for medicine. So most of the antibiotics that we use to treat infections actually are such natural products or are derived from such natural products, but they also play a big role as food ingredients for flavors, for food preservation. In modern agriculture, they are more and more replacing chemical pesticides with having a better environmental footprint. They can be used as dyes. And also, which is important, some of these compounds are extremely toxic, so they also play a big role in food safety or environmental safety. While these natural products are known already for that they are interesting compounds for a very, very long time, some are used for thousands of years, there is a huge demand on new molecules, but a very big problem that finding new molecules and characterizing them is very expensive, very slow, and requires a lot of hands-on work by absolute experts. And that's why we thought, what can we change on this? And the modern technologies in biotechnology has extremely improved over the very last years. So now, in contrast, or in addition to classical ways to identify such chemicals, we can also use genomic data of the producing microorganisms or plants to basically read from the genomes what type of molecules they could potentially produce, even before we do a single experiment in trying to isolate these. And also on the other side, from the chemistry, there is huge progress now in using cheminformatics to do very large analysis data sets or analysis of very large data sets obtained from various analytic technologies like mass spectrometries or NMR that until very few years ago, only a highly skilled, trained professional were able to interpret. And now we have more and more software to help us in this. And this is in the end the concept that we came up with for this doctoral network, that we want to integrate these technologies, that we have what we call genome mining, the genome-based analysis of such compounds, that we have a more chemistry-centered approach in finding such compound, and then really apply this to identify new molecules. And this is a highly interdisciplinary approach where you need bioinformaticians, cheminformaticians, molecular biologists, microbiologists. And this was in the end our pitch, that there is no real training program where you have knowledge in all these areas that we would like to have the colleagues doing this kind of research to do. So in this Magic Mole Fund project, how we termed the doctoral network, we basically have 3 scientific work packages that were directly derived from these demands. One coming from the genes to the molecules, one coming from molecules to identify genes that could be responsible for making the compounds, and then one applying these tools to actually have products in the little vial that we then can use for testing. And around this scientific idea, we built a training program, which, as also mentioned by Sophia, I think was very important to have not only excellent science as part of the application, but also having a training program that can translate this science into new education. So basically, we have different, what we call advanced scientific courses that cover all of these areas for all of the students. So the chemists have to learn the genetics, the geneticists have to learn some chemistry. And also, of course, as this is a very applied technology, we try to make sure that we have a very close contact to our either industrial beneficiaries that are part of the beneficiary network, or also with associated partners, that also all of the students really get insights from the complementary sector. In the network I'm coordinating, we were, I think, in the second call where there only were 10 positions funded. Now in the and please correct me if I'm wrong, in the current calls, they have increased it again to 15. So we currently have 12 students working on the network, and you may be surprised, how did this go? One thing was that I negotiated with my university DTU that if we get this network, if they could jump in another position. So actually DTU is funding one of my doctoral candidates from a DTU internal budget. And then we are maybe one of the very few winners of Brexit. We had one beneficiary that at the time of the submission still was eligible, but then when it came to the grant agreement, it was exactly this period where UK was kicked out for a few months. And then we were lucky in two ways. One was that the colleague managed to raise the funding from UKRI, so we could actually run the exact program as we planned. And the other thing, what was very nice from our project officer at RIA, that they were so flexible that we were allowed to use the budget that was assigned for the UK to have another position that, and then I took the coordinator freedom to snatch because everything had to be done within 24 hours. So this was a very stressful time. And from our 7 beneficiaries, 5 are from the academic sector. So we have 4 universities and one of these research centers that also already were mentioned that run like a company, but they are in the EU system assigned as an academics. And then we have 2 SMEs as beneficiaries that host or that do the full PhD programs. And then we have 3 other companies, one from Denmark, 2 from the States, as associated partners that we pre-agreed with that they will host some of the students for their secondments. And then we have the University of Granada as a more formal associated partner, because this research center, of course, is not part of a university. So for being able to graduate the students, they have already a pre-existing contract with the University of Granada. So they now are also associated partners. They will award the PhD student there. And we now have a fantastic team of 12 earlier career researchers. I'm still regretting a little bit that they are now called doctoral candidates. I really like this term, early stage researchers from actually all over the world. It was a highly competitive process to select. So for the 4 DTU positions, we had over 400 applicants, and it was the hardest I ever had to select candidates, because for all the positions, there were several almost equally well-suited candidates available. And also my colleagues overall had very good candidates applying for these positions. And then I also want to name 2 other people that are crucial to run the network. These are the 2 colleagues in my institute's project management office, because running such a doctoral network, I only realized when we got the grant, is a lot of administration and also a lot of paperwork. And I'm extremely grateful and thankful to Birte and Darko that support me massively with really running it and doing a lot of the also reporting, or at least reminding me that I have to report. So this would be a general recommendation for all applicants. Make sure that you have a good project management that backs your shoulder and can support you there. So Anne and Lea asked me a little bit to talk about the application process. So I try to remember back. Actually, we didn't get the doctoral network on our first try. We tried to run a very similar concept as a integrated training network, which was before Horizon Europe. There was I think the idea was very similar. The implementation is a little bit different. And some of my colleagues just had this idea at a workshop at a conference, which I actually didn't even attend. But then a few weeks later, they contacted me, hey, wouldn't this be something nice to do? And then they convinced me to take over the coordinator role. And there were 2 reasons. One was that we had a much better project management support here at DTU than my colleagues had at their institutions. And then there's also this very nice EU Upstart program where we can quite easily get some startup funding to hire consultants for helping with such project applications. And this was basically the first thing. We wrote a little concept, applied for this EU Upstart funding, and then also got it that allowed us to hire a consulting company that helped with especially the more political part of the project. Concerning our consortium, this may be a little bit special because we never work together in one project, but all of the partners in the consortium know each other extremely well. So we were already, before we worked together in this doctoral network, closely collaborating in other EU projects or in other funding initiatives. So it wasn't a new team coming together, but basically everybody knew exactly what the other group's competences are and where they are good in, which helped a lot, of course, in writing a coherent application, because you don't have to discuss a lot, you know, okay, if I need this competence, it's this partner that can do it. And what also helped a lot, that two of the beneficiaries were extremely or are extremely experienced in participating or in running such ITNs or now doctoral networks. So they could help a lot in defining the teaching program and just having experience how other of these doctoral networks actually run. The scientific part actually was relatively easy because we had this clear 3 work package scope. And what helped a lot, of course, was to have a work package leader among the other beneficiaries for each of these competences that then took the lead in contributing to this part. And I looked in my calendar, I think we only had 1 joint video call and then a lot of small team meetings or one-to-one calls, primarily with me and the colleague that had a specific competence that we needed. And also what was very important, and there I'm also very thankful for Innovate and also our project office, is that we started very early to get these commitment letters by the partner organizations. And also, as we had some startup companies where this was the first time that they participated in an EU program, the companies have to or all participants have to officially register, which is a somehow legal process that isn't difficult, but it can take some time. And it often involves some legal departments or management departments. So that's very important that this is done well in advance. And then basically after summer, we wrote a lot. And in this case, the deadline was January 2020. So the last two months, we basically already had a complete draft that we could then optimize and especially include the input from the consultants. For the writing process, I'm personally a big fan of this collaborative writing with shared documents. I like to use Google Docs, but for this kind of grant applications, due to privacy things, we were not supposed to use Google Docs. So we did it with Office, and it worked. There still were some glitches, which I think now after COVID are much, much better. But this means we never sent around any emails with attachments, and everybody all the time had access to the latest version. And if one of the consortium members made a comment, this comment is seen by everybody at the same time. And this made it very streamlined to really write it. And I took a somehow top-down approach. As the application, we wanted to have a very coherent text. I had problems just copy-paste text block by many different people. So I really wrote most of the parts and then called in for help and information whenever I got stuck or needed some additional information. And again, the benefit was that I knew the other partners extremely well, so I could just write within Word, tag them, hey, do you have numbers for this aspect that we want to emphasize, which worked extremely well, and I would do it exactly the same when we apply for the next time. One thing that is a little bit surprising, especially for people that aren't part of this ITN, is that the actually science, it's 50%, but also in the scientific pillar, it's, I think, almost 25% is on the implementation of the scientific of the training program. So, and especially the description of the project is extremely small. And this was also for us the most difficult thing because, of course, all the PhD projects needed to contribute or even define the work packages. They should somehow be coherent, that there is a lot of collaboration possibility between the PhD students, but under no means the PhD projects should really depend on each other. Because unlike some normal development projects, all of them start at the same time and stop at the same time. And basically, if one PhD project gets delayed, this shouldn't impact the other ones. So this was a little bit difficult to find independent enough projects that still are coherent enough to come up with a good concept. And then as Anne and Leah asked about deliverables and milestones, so what we decided is basically to try to find 2 scientific deliverables per individual project and then contribute to one bigger milestone that is primarily defined by the work package, where we have 1 to 2 from the scientific work packages. When we tried this ITN the first time, we didn't make it, was very disappointed. So we reached the threshold. I think we had 85% or 87% of the score, but it's such a highly competitive program. So I think 93 or 94 at that time was the threshold of funding. And we got a very detailed evaluation report that then helped a lot to improve, I wouldn't call it a resubmission, but to redesign the project there. I just put out some of the comments we got, and some are very obvious if you read it again, that some of the training objectives we simply weren't specific enough and even had some redundancy. We didn't realize this when we were in the writing process, but if you look at half a year after at your own text, I have to agree with the referees. But some also were very tiny things that always got us subtracted 0.1 points that then in the end made us fall below the threshold. So for example, they explicitly commented that it wasn't completely clear if all of the students really get this intersectorial experience. Actually, we had secondments planned in the complementary sector, but we didn't explicitly write this, and apparently just having it in the table wasn't enough, or very detailed how often the students should meet their supervisory boards, where we were a little bit surprised as we were ambitious. And from our experience in these topics, normally the students can come up with 2 to 5 papers, but one of their evaluators thought this is a little bit too ambitious. So it's where some of the comments we got were extremely spot on. Some of the comments were very nitpicky, and I think you can discuss them. But then the next year I was too frustrated, but the year after we got our thoughts together and in the end reused all the work that we had for the ITN and used the comments that we got to be more specific. So we really had this as a checklist to optimize the text. What also actually helped a bit in streamlining the proposal, this ITN had still the 15 positions. Now we had to cut down to 10, which allowed us to also be more stringent with the position. So another point of criticism was that some of the projects sounded very similar. They were working with different organisms, different compounds, different applications, but in this 5 lines of text, it sounded similar. And as we now had to reduce the number of individual projects, basically, we just got rid of these redundant projects, which overall helped to streamline the process. The rewriting in this case was relatively straightforward. Within the ITNs to the doctoral network, the format changed a bit, but overall the things you had to comment on were very similar. The concept stayed the same. So in this case, I didn't apply for the EU Upstat again, but we just hired the consulting company for, I think, half a day of 6 hours of manpower to do a final check of the application before we submit it. And as we already relied on it. We actually came into problem with these commitment letters by the associated partners because we asked them too late. And for some of the companies, it really takes many weeks as it has to go through all the management levels and the legal departments. And in this doctoral network, it's now basically a requirement that you have a signed and completely official letter from the partners that they want to contribute. This was in the end the timeline. So we're now around 1.5 years into the project. So actually the planning, the writing started 2019. I was also very lucky to get the tip from the experienced partners that we don't start too early after we get the notification. So the notification that we got awarded was in April, and we decided to officially start the project then in January in the following year, which gave us enough time to really work on the grant agreement and also the consortium agreement. It would be possible to do it faster, but it would be a lot of stress. And how do we actually implement it? I said we have these scientific work packages, which of course are the most central parts research-wise. And around these, we have a lot of also collaborative events. We have in the application planned that we have annual meetings to discuss the science. And I'm very happy that the students decided themselves this is not enough. They want to meet more often. So also it's still in our description of actions that we have them once per year. We now make them biannually because also the courses are biannually. So it's no problem to have them. And also on initiative of the students themselves, they now have online project updates very regularly that is completely self-organized by the doctoral candidates. And around the scientific part of the project, we have 3, you could also call them summer or winter schools. We call them advanced scientific courses. That is between 3 days and a week, covering a whole topic with presentations, seminars, external guests. Some of them will really be hands-on courses. And then as we have some industrial partners, the 4th one we planned is to have a industry course where it's primarily translational aspects of the type of research we do. And another big benefit, as we have so experienced partners, so for example, our next course, which will be in June in Spain, we do together with another doctoral network that works in a complementary field so that the students even have the chance to expand their network even more. And another thing I stole from some colleagues is that as a final big event, we want to organize an international symposium with external guests that the students organize where they can present their own work and then also invite some of the colleagues to have a scientific conference. And I think the final slide that I have before my end is just some of the tasks distribution that we have. Of course, a lot of the work and especially the contact with RIA and the commission runs via the coordinator. So I'm extremely happy to have a project manager that supports me with this. And actually, we have agreed in our consortium agreement that we'd keep a very tiny bit of this, I don't know how, I don't remember, overhead money that we can finance this project manager. I would be completely lost without him. So I couldn't do managing a project without help there because there are so many rules you have to follow. There are so many different EU systems where you have to report, and having an experienced person there saves a lot of work for everybody, including our project officer that then gets the stuff one time as they need it and not have to discuss how we should do things. Then we have a steering board, which we luckily didn't need yet, which is basically more the legal representatives of the beneficiaries in case there would be some contract changes required. And most of the management happens via the supervisory board, where we have the supervisors, the associated partners, and then very important also the doctoral candidates represented, which in the end is the board that defines how the network is run. And this works extremely well. So if I will apply for the next network, I would basically almost copy this part. What also helps me as a coordinator is that for the teaching program, 2 of my colleagues volunteered to be somehow training managers that help me keeping track of our training objectives, and also are in the end second contact points to plan this coursework. And what I really like is to have a very active forum for the PhD students where they independently and self-organized really, yeah, in the end, they run the most important part of the network. They formally select or elect the members for the steering committee. They take care about our social media dissemination. They, of course, are very free if they have proposals what we should do in the next courses, or if there is a topic they would be very interested in. There's a very open dialogue with them. And they help us actually a lot in organizing the project activities. Now when we have the summer school, they take care about the social program and do it then. So that's in the end my takes. I hope that it wasn't too boring. Just personal learnings. What would I do the same or would I do different? I think it's, as is still a very big consortium, it helped me a lot to have somehow a core team to do sparring, which were very close collaboration partners, which we met also for other project meetings or just scientific updates very regularly, so that you can already do some sparring and discussions before you go to the official planning meetings. One thing which you always plan, but you never do, is start as soon as possible, because some of the things just take time, and we completely underestimated in the second try how long it takes to get these commitment letters. And actually we had one very big company that would have loved to host students that weren't allowed or couldn't get their legal department to sign the letter, because they only sign it when the project is already granted and not for the application. And then we had, of course, to find alternatives. So there it was extremely important to have enough time before the deadline. Then I had extreme good experiences with this external help. In this case, we use this Innovite company, but also our research office at DTU provides input and help. And then one thing that I underestimated is that even very small details matter. So you have to be very clear, and it's very good to have this evaluation checklist next to the application to really see what the evaluators have to comment on, and even every little thing you miss costs 0.1 points, and this can sum up and bring you below the threshold. And now running the project, I really appreciated to have this 6 months between the grant information and the project start to get the paperwork done. What we had to change, initially we planned to have a central recruiting event to post all positions together, do the selection together, but we had to, in the end, skip this, because now the different partners and the university's HR departments have so different requirements that it would have been completely impossible to have all the legal things in place to have one system that then all the universities and companies agree on to do the applications with, so that we decided to have a central posting, but individual applications directly at the site, and then always have a other beneficiary as a co-evaluator of the thesis. And also what we underestimated is how long it takes from actually starting the project to having the students started, with getting work permits, getting the paperwork done. So we initially planned to start in month 6, but the last students then started in September, which still worked perfectly fine. They could all take part in all the events that we planned, but that's also something to consider. And Also, the timing of the milestones deliverables, this was some mistakes we did, because if you ask your colleagues on the milestones input, they always think about the first start date of the PhD student, but the dates that need to get into the EU system is the start of the project. So if the student only starts at month 9 and you put the deliverable at month 12, this means after 3 months of the PhD thesis. And then, as said, I find it absolutely essential to have help with the project management. And also, of course, this is not for free, so there needs to be a little budget to do this. And with this, I would like to thank you for your attention, and I'm happy for questions.
Thank you very much, Tilman, for your very good presentation. We just wanted to add just a few brief comments. As you said correctly, that when you applied, you needed to have letters of commitments from all the associated partners. Just to clarify that that's not a requirement anymore. You don't have to, provide letters of commitments from all the associated partners. So that makes that
much easier.
Yeah. And then also very happy that you mentioned the EU Upstart scheme, which is one that is sort of administered here from our agency. And it's you as a partner, as a coordinator, you can get some funding for sort of the startup activities of sort of preparing the application, and we'll add a link to it in the presentation that we'll send out, so you can see more information about EU Upstart there. And then just to see here, we have some questions. Yeah, no specific questions, so one that says thank you in capital letters. So I think that means that your presentation with all its detail covered all the useful information for when you are to prepare and also to implement a project later on. Sophia, to take advantage of you still being with us, there was a few follow-up questions.
Sure.
One sort of specific about, we talked about tuition fees being covered by the institutional contributions. There's one question. At their university, the tuition fee is around 40,000 euros. Is that reasonable to cover this by the institutional contributions here, the RTNs?
I hope that it's not 40,000 euro per year, because where your institution is based. No, but as I said, I mean, tuition fees should not be covered by the fellows, should be covered by the institutional cost. So indeed, in some cases, they may be high, not everywhere, I must say, in Europe, or but yes, as I say, this should not be paid by the fellows, so definitely under the institutional cost.
Yeah, perfect. And then also a question about the evaluation of resubmissions. If you could add just a few more words on how that process works.
So as I said, for any proposals involving 70% or more the same recruiting organization as in another proposal submitted for the previous call, so in this case, the end 2023, you will be subject to this resubmission committee. So it means that your proposal will be assessed by external expert evaluators who will carry out this assessment, basically. So they will be the one, it's not done by the project officer, it's not done by us, but they are scientific expert, which will be external expert, which will be selected, and they will be responsible to assess your proposals. But of course, if your proposals are received a score equal or above 80%, you have no problem, you can resubmit. Just make sure to use the right template of the call, but then exactly. As Tilman said, it's very competitive, so it's really, sometimes you may receive very strict comments that may penalize your proposal. So be careful and try to pay attention to each of the sub-criteria, to each criterion. Don't underestimate anything. And because it's very challenging call, so make sure to prepare well in advance. I think that Tilman's presentation was super useful and good, and he says something important. If you manage, and I really hope to get to be awarded of the grants, remember to hire a project officer, a project manager, because the project manager is essential. I mean, it's a lot of work, administrative, and also at the very beginning in the recruited phase. So please make sure to have a project manager. Otherwise, it may be problematic, because I mean, also in my experience, I see that projects that don't have project managers, they struggle a bit more. So just this is, so consider this, and there are also part of the institutional cost, management costs can be used to cover this. So exactly.
Perfect. Thanks for the clarification, Sophia. So there's just one final question before we sort of close down the webinar. So it was related to Tilman's presentation, where he sort of touched upon general and political parts of the application. And I think what we'll say is, so it's asking a question, where are those? But to consult the proposal template, which is now also on the call page on the Funding and Tenders portal, which we have links for, to go there and look through the proposal template and really see what information is required for the application. So to go there and look. And then, so I think with that, as we said, thank you, Sophia, for the presentation and answering all the questions.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tilman, as well, for your very good presentation. And we'll just share one last slide here, and that's just to show that we have included in our presentation some useful links. And I saw, Sophia, you had that too in your presentation. We may have different useful links, but make sure you look through our presentations and sum up all the useful links, and we'll add them onto the EU Upstart scheme that we have. And that's sort of all from our side. So we'll just say sort of thank you for joining in today. And as was said, we'll send a link to the recording and all the presentations as well.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a good afternoon.
Bye. Bye-bye.
Bye.